Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new remote training here at RPP. We've been offering remote training for quite some time, but we always required the athlete to come in-house for an assessment. Now we can do the whole assessment online and bring all of our services, pitching, hitting, and strength training to your doorstep. So, if you like what we do and how we do it, go to our website at rocklandpeakperformance.com and click on Remote Training in the toolbar. Thanks. The Behind the Seams podcast. I'm your host, Nunzio Signore, looking to bring you great dialogue with some of the best in the world of player development. The world of training baseball players has changed dramatically during the past few years, and I'm looking forward to shedding some light here on what's the latest, what's the best, and what's really happening in the world of player development. Thanks for joining me for the ride. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Behind the Seams podcast. I'm Nunzio Signore, and today we've got Drew Dickinson. This will be Coach Dickinson's fourth season as pitching coach on Brian O'Connor's staff. In Dickinson's first 3 seasons, the Cavalier pitching staff has been one of the most steady and productive units in all of college baseball. UVA's team ERA of 3.67 over the last 3 years is the 11th lowest in the country and second lowest in the ACC. In that time, Virginia has fanned 1,484 batters, good for the 5th most in the nation. In 2021, the Virginia pitching staff was the backbone of Virginia's run to its 5th College World Series. Prior to his arrival at Virginia, he spent 8 years on staff at his alma mater, Illinois, where he helped the Illinois pitching staff to an unprecedented amount of success during his tenure. Under his guidance, they established new school single-season records for ERA and strikeouts. Dickinson has also coached 2 Big Ten pitchers of the year, 15 Major League Baseball draft picks, including 2 first-rounders and 4 All-Americans. The success on the mound helped Illinois win 60.3% of its games while he was there. Dickinson himself was a 2-time All-Big Ten first-team selection and reached the AA level with the Oakland A's. He was a 2003 Midwest League All-Star and was named a top 25 prospect in the A's system in 2004. There's a lot more of that, but that's going to be my first question to him. So please welcome to the show UVA pitching coach Drew Dickinson. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Well, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So let's first start by talk to us a little bit about working your way up through the ranks, getting into Major League Ball, and where you are now.
Right. Well, obviously, I was a good high school baseball player, like most college players are. But I was more of a outfielder, first baseman who also could pitch. And, I feel like in general terms, if somebody's a good outfielder, a good first baseman, just a good athlete, they usually hop on the mound in high school and win games, which I did.
Yep.
Back then, I didn't really know about a whole lot about college baseball besides the fact that you knew Creighton, you knew Wichita State back in the mid-'90s because that's what you saw on TV. And obviously Illinois. And Illinois became prominent for me because a teammate of mine in high school was signed to go. Was a big-time pitcher, signed to go to Illinois. My high school coach, who played at Illinois, football and baseball, called Itch Jones, my head coach at the time there, and told him to take me. And he said that I'd be starting in the outfield by my sophomore year for him. And they gave me a walk-on spot. And started out doing, outfield, first base, also pitching, and then started pitching in my freshman year and through like only 9 innings. But I went to summer baseball in Waterloo and pitched like 7 innings, and my game just totally flipped and just went to a different level from experiment standpoint and just my overall performance. And I've always been a confident person, so being confident in the baseball field was never a problem. But having that experience, and I just took it to a different level. When I came back, I had a good sophomore year. Then obviously I subsequently had a good junior and senior year, and then got drafted by the A's as a left-handed pitcher who was literally 81 to 84, 85, but
wow,
had a good changeup. My stuff was good from a movement profile standpoint, right? But not from a velocity standpoint, anything like that. But all I did was win baseball games and compete, and it at least got me a shot to play professional baseball. And I always like to say, I think I went farther in professional baseball than anybody else would have done with the same set of skills that I possess. So I'm proud of how far I got to go. And I use those experiences of failure and success to help me be a better coach.
You said two big things. You knew how to win games and compete. I have a question for you real quick. Do you think that focusing on pitching later helped you get such great gains when you were in college? Kind of like the early to ripe, early to rot syndrome, where kids are just pitching since they're 8 years old. And a lot of times by the time they get to 17, 18, or 19, they blow something, or they're just shot. So you had mentioned that you kind of like, you were playing all positions and throwing, and you didn't really focus on it much until that summer playing ball.
Right. Yes and no. I think things have changed so much from when I played. I mean, I was in high school baseball from 95 to 98. So, I mean, back then it wasn't specialized things going on at all. You played baseball, then you went and played basketball, then you golfed, then you played football.
Awesome.
Stuff has gotten more specialized now. And I think just in general terms, as doing the line of work that you do, kids naturally throw harder these days. And they get almost forced into being specialized because they're so good. They're like, hey, just concentrate on that because this is where you're going to end up doing, right? And then they end up, by way of that, becoming specialized and doing that. And they throw more and whatnot. And quite honestly, they're at such an elite level at such a young age. That's what's the scary part is, hey, a 16-year-old body necessarily isn't built to throw 90 miles an hour yet. But if it's happening, you have to do your best job to help it and keep it healthy. But never had those problems when we did it. We played, and then you played basketball. You're playing baseball basically from February to July, and that was it.
Unless you're from the South.
That's true.
Brings me to a question that I wanted to ask you. When I look at UVA's roster, I see a lot of guys from the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Is this by design?
Obviously, I can't speak too much to it, especially in the past, being now just my first recruiting class. Technically, me being the sole proprietor of the whole class won't be here until next year. But I think a couple of things. Coach Mack, is from New Jersey. He played, up there, played in IUPA in Pennsylvania, and then he's from New Jersey and coached at St. John's, so has a lot of contacts up there. But also, I think that we're south for them, right? Like if you're up in the Northeast, UVA is south, and I feel like baseball players always want to go south. So we're south for them. We're a very good academic institution. At the Northeast, you find a lot of good private schools. Academics are important. So I think the marriage is good, and the match is good with those kids.
On the other side of the coin, what I'm kind of talking about is if you have a guy that's from, Tallahassee, Florida, who throws 94, and you've got a guy from Maine who throws 94, there's a considerable less amount of mileage on that arm from Maine.
100 times out of 100.
Okay.
I will, and this may be a little bit old school in me a little bit, but I just fully believe that development of an arm, the true development, when kids develop now, like they're late, a kid's developing or blows up his junior year, like, oh, he's a late bloomer. He's not a late bloomer. He's borderline on time here, right?
Yeah.
And that kid, I will argue that if I have a kid who's 15 years old and he's 84, and I have a kid who's 15 years old and he's 90 and he's from the South and the 84 is from the North, they both move well. They're good athletes, right? And the 90-mile-an-hour guy will get to college and he'll be a sophomore and throw a 91, 92. And then this guy will be 91, 92. And then a year later, this guy's 93, 94. This guy's still 91, 92. I feel like some of those guys throw through their development
exactly
at the right age. So the Northern guys will always end up passing it up. Ultimately, when it matters for their own personal gains of being a pro, not necessarily for us, right? Drafted, right? So that's why you look at those kids, and if you can get your development going and getting your guys coming in, if guys can pitch as a freshman, great, awesome. But if not, the development stages, they're going to be there when it comes time to their last 2 years of college, 2.5 years, and then also being time ready for the next level of professional baseball, right? So, I mean, there's a reason, like if you look at American-born players every year on opening day rosters in major leagues, about 60% are from above the Mason-Dixon line, and there's a good reason for that.
Right.
Like you said, mileage on the arm. They did other things. They didn't play baseball 11, 12 months out of the year. And they gave their arm a break and allowed themselves not to throw through levels of development.
I was just doing some research on arm injuries. I have a lot of guys from Dr. Olchek and Dr. Ahmad who, after they're done their rehab, they come here and they do their Tommy John rehabs as far as their strength training and their throwing programs go. I have Dr. Michael Freehill I'm going to interview on my podcast on Friday, team doctor for the Oakland A's. And I wanted to ask him about this stat, which is in the last 3 to 5 years, there is actually less UCL injuries in Major League Baseball, but there's more in college and there is considerably more in high school as opposed to the previous 3 years. So what that's telling me is kids are throwing hard at a young age, and they're early to ripe, early to rot. Got kids are coming in. I've got kids in here right now. I've got kids in here at 15 years old that are throwing in the 90s. That's crazy. And I've got a kid who's 13 who's throwing 80, and his mother's running around like a chicken with her head cut off, that he's only throwing 80. I'm like, dude, this kid is 13 years old. Do you want his arm to fall off by the time he's 18? That's why I was curious about, I think the Northeast, because of our weather, this weather sucks. I tell you, I really much prefer where you are, but it does help guys not throw a baseball year round. From your experience, what are some common mistakes that high school pitchers make in their preparation to play college baseball?
Good question. You can go a lot of ways with this. I think one of the key factors always is especially when they find out when they get here, that strength, right? Like how much stronger guys are. But then again, you want guys to develop at their pace when they're young. You obviously want to take care of your body, but I think there's a little give and take of how much you do. From a baseball standpoint, the biggest things I see are like, okay, in college baseball, we're talking like controlling the run game, right? Like you have writers come in and they're like 1-7 to the plate all the time. And like, they just at college, they can't play that way because they get exposed right away. And the biggest thing I deal with as a pitching coach is volume of throwing. And what I mean by that is I want my guys to get to a point where we throw every single day, minimum 6 days a week. We're playing catch. The right ways. We have certain days, we have distances and stuff like that we go, and it's all off how they feel and whatnot. But they get those routines to work best for them. But so many kids, and I see it all the time in travel baseball. You're like, talk to a kid like, oh, he's like, coach, I'm starting on Saturday. Okay, great. What are you doing before that? Well, I'm traveling down there on Thursday and then Friday, and then wait, you're not playing catch for 3 days before you start in a travel baseball game, right? And they'll throw like, I'm gonna throw a pen on Tuesday, but they end up throwing like 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I'm like, well, yeah, you feel good. Of course you feel good. If I didn't play catch every 3 days, of course my arm would feel good, but it's not putting me in a position to be healthy and have sustained success. And that's the biggest thing for my guys, at least who work for me coming in, is getting used to throwing that volume of 6 or 7 days a week. So every fall, it's a learning experience, and all of our guys' velocities go down in the fall. And I go, great. I could care less if you're peaking velocity in the fall. If we're peaking velocity in the fall, I'm not doing my job correctly.
And we're going to talk about, what your throwing programs look like. We're going to talk about who should take time off from throwing and what ages and when. So we're going to get into that in a minute. I've heard a lot of coaches say that when they first started out, they were more concerned with creating a name for themselves than getting autonomy from their athletes. Does this ring a bell with you? I'm trying to figure out the correct way of what I'm trying to say. I think that naturally everyone, when they take a job, they're like, man, I have to kill this. You know what I mean? And that's just the right thing, the way to look at it. But I've heard guys actually say, hey man, I'm going to admit it. I got a little carried away with the win, and stopped worrying about like the autonomy that my guys get and how well they could take care of themselves.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think mine was kind of like a little hump right there. I started out, I was like, I'm just happy to have a job. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to coach until I came back to finish my degree in 2009. They asked me to be the volunteer assistant. And then I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm really good at this. The players are responding to me. I absolutely love it. So I retired and started coaching. And when I got that first full-time job at Illinois, actually having a salary, think about you playing professional baseball, making $1,500 a month for 5 months a year.
Right.
Not making any money, right? And I was like, whoa, I'm making $44,000 a year. I feel rich right now, right? And all I was worried about was the players and wanting to change, for me, Illinois, wanted to change the pitching culture at Illinois, because I thought we always hit well there. Naturally, but the good arms would go south, right? And I wanted to keep guys there and develop them. After 4 or 5 years, we had a lot of success, and then you start to learn a lot about college coaching, and then a little bit was I started like wanted more for myself, right? I almost went. I don't think I changed necessarily about how I treated the pitchers, but I got a little selfish in wanting to. What's the next step for me of moving on in this career? Because I've been somebody who I just believe in, like, if you're doing something, you should try to be the best at it. That's just how
you were more not concerned with killing the position you were in. You were trying to actually progress yourself through life.
Correct. A little bit. Yeah.
Right. That's different.
Also, my pitchers will always be my most important thing. I mean, they're the reason I have a job or keep a
Right.
job, right?
Right.
Is them. So I will always live and die by them. And you brought up autonomy. My biggest thing is, maybe to a fault, I try to give them a lot of leeway, and maybe too much sometimes for young kids, where I need to maybe remote control them a little bit more. I want guys to be able to do their own things, because when they're in professional baseball, it's them, man. I mean, I know they're an organization, but it ultimately comes down to you. And most guys are all doing their own thing. And I want guys to be self-sufficient, so they can have success, not only in college, but professional baseball, man. You can go and you can take care of yourself and have the best chance to chase down that dream of being a big leaguer.
I feel exactly the same way as far as getting them to have autonomy and how to take care of their bodies. Like, I can't tell you how many times I have a kid for like 14, 15, 16, 17. I get him for like 4 years. I train him. We put him on throwing programs. We get him in the weight room. And then he goes off to college, and I get a call from the college coach saying, dude, I just want to tell you that your guy is stellar in the weight room. He's actually like running the lifts as a freshman. That's a really big thing.
No.
You know what I mean? For a kid to come in and trying to get accepted, and then, he's starting to like have a big role in the guys' workouts. So that autonomy is huge. As one of the consistently highest ranked baseball programs in the country, how do you maintain a high level of excellence year in and year out? And let's talk about these things one at a time. First of all, your recruiting process.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, me coming into a place that a lot of the standards and culture have been built, right? Coach O'Connor, Coach McMullen, and Coach Kuhn, who was the pitching coach before me, they were together for 16 years, the longest tenured staff in college baseball. And, Coach Mack and Coach Oak obviously still here. And I've, coming on the pitching side. So, you have their culture and their pillars of what this program stands for. Me is just coming in and just adding my voice, but also, just coming in and keeping the ship steady, right? And recruiting it the same way. In recruiting, I recruit the pitchers. Coach Mack does the position players. So I have the say in who comes in for the pitching. And, I just want to keep the ship going the right way, which is get the best players and best people combination that we can get here. It's one thing to be a good player, but we want the right kid with character and personality and all those things that fit the culture of wanting to get better personally, but also want to get better as a team and win and have a common goal, not just be totally all about themselves. We're all going to be about ourselves in the recruiting process individually, but when you're on a team, it's still a team sport, right? This ain't golf. This isn't tennis. So you want those guys to still have the buy-in of what the culture is, because it still comes back to, as a program, we're still judged on winning, right? So, but how do we marriage the player development, which is the most important thing for them, and the common goal of the group?
Recruiting a great athlete, but also a great person, is huge. Corey Mascara told me that Ed Blankmeyer gave him a great quote that when he's in the recruiting process, he uses all the time. He says, you don't get burned by a kid on his commitment. You get burned on a kid who gets there and burns you, and it's just like a dud, right? You're not going to get burned by a guy that's never played for you. You're going to get burned by the guy that actually you recruit, and he actually can burn. Now he can burn you. He's there, right? So how about the training process? How do you maintain a high level excellence year in and year out?
Well, I mean, you have good people in place, right? Our trainer is unbelievable. Brian McGuire is our trainer. Has been here since Coach O'Connor's been here for 20 years. So having a guy who is knowledgeable in that regards, obviously pitching being the big one, right? Because our arms are so fickle. But just as the whole team, how well he takes care of our guys and how much he knows. Our strength coach the same way. And for me as a pitching coach is never stop learning. I mean, I wish I could say I know I have all the answers, but I don't. And I've had to change, not necessarily how I coach, but like what I know. Like if you ask me 8 years ago, hey coach, I'm having problem with hip and shoulder separation, some drills, I won't be able to give you one drill to use. I was so good on the right routines and mindset and competitiveness, all those things. But now I've spent a lot of my time learning that side of the game as well. Whereas, because all these kids come from kind of like your guys' place, they come from like personal training atmospheres,
Private sector.
Yeah. And all these kids are coming. So they're very knowledgeable. These kids are smart when it comes to what they know and what they do. So you can't dismiss that. So I use it to, hey, I got to be on par with these kids, because I need to try to know what they know so I can keep them going on the same, plane as where they're going. And I also use them guys to teach me, hey man, what have you been doing? Talk to me.
Yeah.
I have an ego. I want to be good, but if you can teach me something to help you sustain success in other guys, I
That
love
helps
it.
me. Yeah.
It helps me, man. It also helps the player because I can then help them as their coach.
That's awesome. As far as throwing programs go, what does your ideal throwing program look like for your guys in those off-season months, like November to January? The reason I ask this is a little of a selfish question for myself because my gym right now, it's getting ready. Everyone's getting ready to go back to school. From Thanksgiving to January 15th, my place is packed in the mornings and the afternoons with all the guys. It's great because I get to see these guys again. They went off to college and now I get them for a couple years during the winter break. They're here, right?
Yeah.
So I give them a throwing program. They're only here for 3-4 weeks. I can't really like sit there and do a mocap and a video analysis and really try to change anything in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But I'm trying to keep them healthy and trying to give them the best chance to succeed and really hit the ground running when they come to see you. And that's kind of the whole aspect of my winter training program is to get these guys a little bit stronger, more athletic, and get their arm ready to hit the ground. What does your throwing program look like after your early season in September, October ends?
Right. So the ramp up to me is the most important part. It's almost probably, I don't know the percentages, but the insane percentage of injuries happen at that time, right? You see all the major arms in college go down week 1, week 2. Why? Because they either ramped up too quickly. And the ramp up doesn't mean necessarily the throwing program to hitting the mound, but also when they start hitting the mound, they go through progressions way too quickly and they're throwing too many pitches early on in the first games of the year. And you see guys get hurt. So for me, the ramp up is the most important. So usually it's around 8 weeks. We try to go 3 days a week, 3 days a week, and then 4 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 5 days a week. And on that week 4, you start to tickle them out a little bit, maybe with like, a short box of just fastballs. And then your second bullpen is like just 20 fastballs. Then it's fastball change 2025 as you start to get, those more days of throwing. And then, week 7, you'd be on the mound now for 6 days a week. So it's, week 1's 3, week 2's 3, then it's week 3's 4 days, week 4's 4 days, week 5's 5, week 6 is 5, and then week 7's 6, week 8, and then boom, you're at full capacity as far as like your throwing goes. And now it's about, that brings them back up to basically here, where this weekend, and we start with, we call them a live bullpen type stuff, where it's like a bullpen, 20 pitches, but the hitter is standing in, and then we slowly start to build the innings and pitches together to get ready for the first game of the season. Where I think I'm different is the first game of the year. My starter won't go more than 5 innings. No, I don't care if he's at 50 pitches. You're done.
In that first month, when they first get there, say it's November, okay? In that first, you said it's 3 days, 3 days. How many throws?
90 feet, 90 feet, 90 feet the first week. So it's basically 90 feet. It's going to be only about 25, 30 throws.
Yeah.
My throwing program, the way it's set we put cones out in the fall, and then after that, so it's for the new guys to understand how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, it's just how 5 steps backwards is 15 feet, and they go as far as they want. I don't put limits on throwing program stuff. Only in the beginning when we're building up do I say, hey, max 120, max 150, until we get a good enough base. I know we're built. Then we can kind of get into your own routines of, hey, I throw long toss on the day I pen. Some guys only throw 120 on the day they pen, right? That's, you start to get the individual aspect of their daily throwing routines.
And what is those 25 throws on the first week and the second week? Do you ramp that up, or is it always 25 and you just increase distance?
Yeah, it's just we start increasing distance a little bit.
Not volume.
Not necessarily volume, but it can be a little bit. I mean, again, to each his own. Some guys, that can take care of themselves. They know what they're doing, communicate. Then you have your younger kids. You have to put on like, hey, this is what you're going to do. So I know that you're staying, especially when you're not around them, right? You have to feel like you're staying in this good area to not, because they want to go fast and long right away. Like, no, man, we don't play a game for 2 months, 2.5 months. We got time,
Right. That's really helpful information for me, just trying to figure that out. And also, you had mentioned high school kids. You had mentioned that you like to see them throwing 5 days a week. Oh, you could get a lot of slack for that. I agree with you. There are times when throwing every day is great. When would you specify when it's okay to start throwing every day? Like with a 12-year-old kid, a 13-year-old kid, a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
I mean, like that's
It depends what they're doing. Like if a 14-year-old kid is making one start a week, and you know that, when I say throwing every day, like if I
Yeah,
throw,
catch.
yeah, if I throw 6 days a week, one day it might, if let's say day one is a start and I threw 85 pitches. All right, the next day I might throw to 75, 90 feet max. I'm done. But
Right.
but I don't take the day off, in
Right.
my opinion. You throw, and then maybe the next day is 120, and the next day is 180 or 220. Like,
And the percentage is like 60, 70%.
correct. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's where all those different there, but like just not throwing at all,
Yeah.
and then doing
Yeah,
high.
I agree with you. I agree with you. The residual stress on the tissue, the body, to keep remembering that you do throw a baseball for a living. This is
Yep.
what you do. And I see it when guys stop. Even when guys stop, like my high school guys, when Christmas break comes and we're closed for 5 days, the guys that don't throw come back, and I've got parents calling me up. My son said his arm is sore today. Well, did he throw? No, he didn't throw the whole time. Well, he didn't throw for a week, and then he came back and threw. We told him to take it easy if you didn't throw, but telling kids to take it easy when they throw is like banging your head against the wall. It's not, they don't know how to do that. They have one speed, and it's go.
Agree.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's key. I was talking to Alan Yeager on the show a few months back, and we were talking about how important it is for kids to learn how to control adversity on the mound when things may be not going their way, or controlling the excitement factor. What are some methods, if any, that you use to help your athletes prepare for anxiety on the mound?
Well, you keep using the word prepare. I think preparation in its own right controls anxiety, meaning when kids know that they've done the work, in the weight room, in mobility, in the throwing program, all their stuff, when they know they've done the work, anxiety is going to be a little less because they know that they are prepared.
That's a great answer.
If it doesn't go well, it wasn't because you weren't ready. Hey, it's not always going to go well in this game. We know that, right? And as the higher you go up, it becomes more 50-50 on that realm. From an anxiety standpoint, nerves, I think nerves are good. I think the moment you're not nervous anymore, you need to quit, because you've lost a little bit of edge that makes this game great, right? You're performing in front of people. I think having nerves, you can use those in a positive way for you, for your success.
But what about the nerves for a kid who he's prepared, then he shouldn't have nerves, but he does. And he's not, this kid's got great stuff, but his head just is his worst enemy.
Well, you can go a lot of different ways with that. One, coming from me, I like to think I make, no matter what their stuff is. I don't care if I have a guy who's 85, 87. I bet you if you ask him, you'd think he would say that I make him feel confident that he's good enough to compete at any level, right? I think that's your job, partly as a coach, to make them believe in themselves 110%, right? But when you have guys who I've seen it, and we have it now, the resources of, hey, it is what it is. Mental health performance is a big side of sports now. And if you're not taking advantage of it, even if you are somebody who is confident, you can still better yourself by taking advantage of it. And we have a huge department here, an unbelievable department here in Virginia. And we've done some stuff with Brandon Geyer now as well this year with our team who played here. But there's a reason why every major league club has a mental performance coach that oversees a program, because it is more so than ever before is a needed thing with kids. And I think probably because of just how much information, social media and stuff that's out there that kids see.
That's an unbelievable point. I can see the anxiety and the lack of social skills of kids walking into the gym on a daily basis. It's almost like we're raising a society of robots.
No doubt. And I hate to say this, you mentioned this earlier when you were talking about the parents complaining about my 13-year-old kid isn't throwing 85, is the parents need to
chill out.
Need to chill out the reality check, but they can't, because they like you and me, they see everything on social media. Like, wait, my kid played against this kid. This kid's 90, my kid's 82. Oh, hell is breaking loose. No, it's not. And the kid wants to just be a kid, but the parent, people say kids have changed. Kids have not changed, in my belief. Parents have changed.
I agree. One woman keeps telling me, my son he's getting anxiety, and he's getting stressed about his velo. We watch this kid come in and we talk to him every day. He's not stressed out at all. He loves it here and he's doing great. She's stressed out about his velo. So anyway, okay.
Going to your guys' place is his refuge, is where he can be himself.
Exactly. And you know what else? It's really, really important. I tell people all the time, don't sit on my couch and watch your kid work out. Go home or go do shopping or something. Because you know what? We're in a society right now where we drive our kids everywhere. Everything is scheduled. This is an opportunity for them to interact. This is an hour and a half a week, twice a week, 3 times a week that they get to come here and interact with other kids without you being over their head with a set of binoculars. You know what I mean? So we don't allow the parents to come in and sit down anymore when kids are working out. I said, listen, man, it's not that I don't want you here, but to be quite honest with you, I'm a dad. I can tell you right now, your kid does not want you here.
Yeah.
What are some of the aha moments you've grabbed from working beside such a iconic coach as Brian O'Connor?
I tell people this all the time. I knew why Virginia was Virginia. My first practice here when I got hired. 30 minutes in, they knew right now why they go to the College World Series. Why, it starts with him as being the CEO of this program, but the level of communication, the attention to detail, and attention to detail doesn't mean just the staff. Attention to detail means from everyone, support staff to players to managers, to trainers, everybody is this common goal of there is no like miscommunication on those realms of what's expected from everybody and everybody's role. And when you have that and you all are truly pulling towards the same common goal, it's amazing what things get accomplished. Right. And for me as a coach this is huge for me because I'm a pitching coach, right? That's why I'm labeled as in college baseball as a pitching coach. Well, Coach Oak was a pitching coach as well, and now became a head coach. Let's be honest. In college baseball and in professional baseball, your managers are always what? Catchers, position players. It's the same way as if like we don't know anything about baseball and like the other side of the game as well. So I love that he was a pitching coach and now is a head coach. And I love to see that because for me, it's about watching him and how he interacts with not just the pitchers, but the entire group and how he maintains, for me, his relationships with the players. I bet you are the same way they were when he was an assistant, which I think is huge because, I aspire to be a head coach. And the last thing I want is to lose those relationships you have when you're an assistant. They're a little different for some people, right? The head coach kind of gets a little part ways, and some guys are afraid to maybe have that, those human moments with each other, and I love that about him. I love his energy that he brings to the table on a day in and day out basis. And players see that and players respond to that. It's been great. And for me, it's every day is a new learning experience.
That's great. And you know what? It's really great to be in an environment like that because you don't realize how valuable it is to be somewhere where every day you go there and you go home and you go, something just kicks into your mind that happened today that was like, we're fortunate that we're in businesses where we actually go home. I drive home every day and I tell my wife, or I think to myself, wow, I'll be sleeping and wake up and think, wow, that was really great yesterday. That was like, sometimes it's a little stressful, but for the most part, getting aha moments on a daily basis, man, that's gold.
It is. And it's why he's so good and why this program's been so consistent. And for me, it's just like, yeah, it's not just 1 or 2 moments here and there. It's literally a daily basis to obviously you still want to be yourself, like, right? Like moving forward, I still want to be me, but I'm pulling so much from him that if and when I ever get an opportunity to, run my own program, I feel like I'm going to be really prepared because of how much I've gotten to learn from him.
Awesome. As a pitching coach, what do you think are the most important factors for ensuring sustained success in college baseball?
Again, are we talking from a performance standpoint or just a health standpoint? We can go so many ways with this.
I would say all of the above.
Yeah.
Loving what you do, keeping your job, and being good at it.
Yeah, no doubt. From a performance standpoint for pitchers, obviously we're always searching for consistency, right? Level-headedness. I mean, all those things, guys who work hard, but you can say stuff. Yeah, stuff is great, but I see guys with stuff all the time that never hit the field, right? So stuff is great, but having the ability to compete, and I mean that because when you get to this level, everybody on that field is good, right? And when you go to the next level in professional baseball, everybody on that field is good as well. So what is going to separate you? If you have stuff and I have stuff, but I have this inner motor that I'm going to compete and you're never going to, I'm always going to beat you. You're not going to beat me. That's going to set me apart. Right. And that's where I liken to be like, that's how I was. So, and my goal with my pitchers all the time is, all right, if these guys have great stuff, and if I can instill my competitiveness and will to win in these guys, then in the end result, we hopefully would be a bunch of dudes running around everywhere, right? So, I think that for sure is not only having stuff, but being able to compete on the baseball field and have this will to win will separate you and keep and let you be on the field, right? Because, hey, our staffs are big. We have 18 to 20 pitchers, and we play 4 games a week on average. So, hey, man, not everybody's going to start, right? So you have to be able to accept roles and do your thing in a different way. So that's also is big as well, and taking care of yourself and being diligent on what you do. Arm care, mobility, lifts. Hey, I shouldn't have to oversee you like a hawk, watching you do your band work or your plyos or your med ball. You should be, what you're doing. You should be so diligent in what you're doing, because that stacking all those days together over weeks and months and years is ultimately what's going to keep you hopefully healthy, but also the mindset to what you need to do to be competitive at this level. And you have to be fanatical about your development.
There's that autonomy again. We've been talking to Drew Dickinson, pitching coach at UVA. Drew, thanks so much for being on the show. This was fantastic information.
Great. I appreciate it. Obviously we could talk for hours, but we got time.
We got to do what we got to do, right?
We do.
How can guys reach out to you?
Obviously on Twitter, I have my DMs open if it's anybody who I don't have their phone number. But obviously,
what's your Twitter handle?
Twitter handle is at Drewdown, DRUDOWN 1414.
Okay.
If you DM me, then we can exchange numbers, and then obviously talk through text or phone calls or email and whatnot. And it's always easier that way.
You can reach me on Twitter at Nunzio Signore. You can reach my facility at RPP_baseball or our website, rocklandpeakperformance.com. Look into our remote training if you'd like. And also my book, Velocity-Based Training, How to Apply Science, Technology, and Data to Maximize Performance. That's released by Human Kinetics, and you can get it on Amazon. Thanks, guys, for tuning in again. I'd like to thank Drew for being here. And until next week, we'll see you on the next one.